yet. Another way that Iran continues to show its influence in the region is through its proxies, specifically the Houthis. Just 2 nights ago, sirens blared across central Israel, sending millions into shelters due to a missile launched by the Houthis in Yemen. And despite U.S. airstrikes, the militia doesn't seem to be backing down on its attacks against Israel anytime soon. Now, joining us is Noa Lazimi, a senior fellow at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Noa, there is a ceasefire in place with Iran, but that doesn't mean that the conflict with Iran and its proxies is anywhere near over. What can we expect to see specifically from the Houthis going forward now? Did the 12-day war change anything in this aspect?
Hi, Bianca. Thank you for having me. To answer your question, Israel achieved a major victory against Iran, but as you said, that doesn't mean that the war is over. In fact, Iran is highly motivated to retaliate now. And in my view, it's only a matter of time until it does so. Now, as for the Houthis, despite the fact that they don't seem to possess a relatively high level of threat to Israel, what worries me most is their consistency and their radical ideology. I mean, they're not showing any signs of backing down. And you would expect them to be extremely weakened, or at least not as motivated to provoke Israel after the major hit that Iran suffered. And obviously that did impact their weapon supply, and also taking into account the American airstrikes on Yemen. But still, for them, it's important to show, even with a few missiles, that they're still in the picture, that they're here to stay, and we have to take them into account in the regional order.
All right. Well, that said, on the flip side of this, the Israeli strikes on Iran did open doors for bettering relations with other countries in the region. It did shake up the situation here. How real would you say the potential is for starting to normalize ties right now? For instance, with Syria, with Lebanon, what is the situation on a more positive note for Israel?
There is real potential. The Israeli achievements have opened the doors for normalization with many countries, including Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and perhaps many more. And it definitely created a momentum for enhancing both security and economic collaboration between many countries of the region, which is in alignment with Trump's vision, and I think also Netanyahu's vision, to expand the circle of peace, as Trump said. But that being said, I think that Israel should pursue this with great caution. When we're talking about Lebanon and Syria, for example, like you mentioned, any potential agreement with these countries must address Israeli security concerns with regards to threats emerging from these territories. So Israel must retain the ability to intercept those threats if necessary.
All right. And if we're looking at this on a short-term or medium-term timeline, would you say that Israelis should be expecting to see sort of a flare-up with Iran again anytime soon? We were discussing here in the studio that the 1 to 2 years timeline that they were set back just means that that's the time it would take. It doesn't mean that there's going to be silence until then.
Right, that's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't rule it out. Israel must be prepared for all scenarios. My modest opinion is that the Iranians will take the time to retaliate. They do have the motivation. With this current regime, there is definitely still the aspiration to bring the destruction of Israel. That hasn't faded away. And they are trying to rebuild the capabilities, both on the defense and the offense. But again, I think from their perspective, their calculated risk is that they need a time because they want to do it effectively without risking the counterattack that would leave them worse off. So I assume that it's not going to happen in a matter of weeks, but that's just my assumption.
All right. And what can we expect then to see over the next months when coming from Israel? More supervision of Iran, more talks with the U.S. What can we expect to see?
Definitely, Israel must be proactively and consistently, both vis-a-vis Iran and the Houthis, working to degrade their capabilities, using the intelligence indications. We know, for example, that the Iranians are for example, there have been suspicious Iranian activity near the damaged nuclear sites. That's not innocent. They're probably trying to maybe salvage some remains or assess the damage. But in any case, the broader goal is to resume nuclear activity. So Israel must stay on the guard with that. And same with the Houthis. I think, by the way, when we talk about the Houthis, we have to be proactive and not just responsive. And again, degrade their capabilities, not allowing them to recover and to pose again the threat to Israel.
All right, Noa Lazimi, thank you very much for your analysis and your input this evening. We have to